And I think that it just bothered me because me personally, I do not like when people target vulnerable people and populations of people. Um, People who are they know that they can manipulate and use to their advantage. And these kids, of course, they want to be on TV, they want to be famous, they want to be part of Nickelodeon, which is one of the top stations at that time, right, for kids. And of course, tell me the Nickelodeon shows y'all watch. I know y'all watched the Nickelodeon shows because I did. I watched all that. I don't know if I've ever seen like iCarly, Drake and Josh. I think I was kind of too old for that. But I definitely watched all that and some of the other shows with Dan Snyder back then. And I can't even think of all his shows, but like he was a part of a lot of the shows that I watched. And it's something about people who they put in powerful positions that feel that they can use that power to their advantage and they use it in a negative way. Um, because Dan Snyder knew how powerful he was, right? Even though it went through an executive team and material was approved by them as well, he had a lot of say in the direction of the show. He had a lot of say in what could air, who would be a star, who wouldn't be a star. He would fire people who went against him. And it was really no room to go back and forth with him, according to a lot of the cast and a lot of the writers and employees that were there. Um, but what is this sick fascination with abusing, and I don't want to say because obviously I don't want, but the young, right? Hurting children. They just want to hurt children and they want to abuse children so they get in these roles where they're vulnerable, where they want something so badly that they're willing to let a lot of things slide. And the parents, unfortunately, don't pay attention to signs that clearly indicate that their child is in danger. Um, what was the show with the green slime? That was Nickelodeon. That was Nickelodeon, Freezy. That is the show where, and they did a lot of weird stuff on there that now I'm thinking about it, I'm like, yeah, that was weird. Like the whole pickle thing, they had a whole bunch of pickles and they would always be putting the pickles in their mouth and doing all this stuff. That was very inappropriate for kids. And then there's these scenes with Ariana Grande where she's taking water and she's splashing it all over her face and she's being very like suggestive in those scenes. Um, there's scenes where Dan clearly has a fetish with feet. He has ketchup on feet, and people are doing weird things that I think a lot of the kids who were the child stars reported that they were very uncomfortable with. Um, but I guess they just they did it because they wanted to be famous. So what's the price of fame? Like, is fame worth all of that? And so I know a lot of the people who we idolize and we look up to, a lot of the famous people, I just wonder what did they have to do to get there? Because when you hear these backstories and these horror stories about what people go through and behind the scenes, it really makes me look at fame very differently. And now I'm wondering if it's an institution that we should even support, because even Taraji talked about how Black actors are underpaid and there's just so many things that happen behind the scene. And we're all consuming all of this. But meanwhile, in the background, they're suffering and we're supporting this entire institution and machine. And it's our money that keeps it going. So I think if you have not watched that Nickelodeon special, you have to watch it. And I really would like to hear your opinion about it. Please, please comment. Watch the 4 parts. And I even watched just the last 2 parts, and it was very damaging and very telling. Now Drake Bell, who was one of the child stars, he's went on to get into so much stuff, right? Of course, after he went through all of the things that he went through with that Brian Peck, he had a terrible life, a very difficult life. And I think that what one of the key points that I picked up from that was Drake Bell's father was noticed that this behavior was very odd between his son and the abuser, right? And he started to question what's going on here because the man exhibited behavior that was concerning to a parent. And because the father said something, they devised this plan to get the father kicked off the set of Nickelodeon. So now the father's not there to protect his son, right? So that leaves him vulnerable and susceptible to all of these men and predators that are on site here at Nickelodeon. So I think that that is a key factor that you want your children to explore options, right? I even worry about my kids in extracurricular activities because in extracurricular activities, sometimes predators are in those institutions as well. Predators are teachers because that's where kids are, right? They do things to be close to kids. So you do have to watch your kids in all scenarios. And you think, oh, they're safe at school. School's not necessarily safe for kids. You think they're safe in after school activities. Uh After school activities are not necessarily safe for kids. Your kids have to be monitored. And I'm very open with my kids. I tell them, don't go anywhere with anybody. If somebody tells you to do that, you tell me immediately. This is, I have rules, right? I talk to my kids about this stuff, but it's a shame. You do have to watch your kids. And when you have multiple children and your kids are interested in being a star, you can't be at the studio 8 hours a day, 4 hours a day. So I'm sure some parents probably dropped their kids off, picked them up when they were done. And this, left room for somebody, unfortunately, to prey on your children. And that is what I don't like. I like to expose those institutions that prey on children. And I think that it's absolutely disgusting. And so I just, watching that documentary, it weighed heavy on my heart. And it just kind of brought me back to when I used to watch Nickelodeon, and I just thought it was completely innocent. And you don't really see what's happening in the background to your favorite stars, to people you like. I used to watch Keenan and Kel, right, on all that. And it's interesting how some of the cast, especially the ones who've already kind of made a name for themselves and who've blown up, they're not really talking about the abuse that happened, or they're not really commenting on anything. And I'm curious as to their reason why they're not getting involved. Um, and I believe that, sometimes people become a part of the culture. So they repeat some patterns and they do the same thing to other people. And so, not accusing them, but I'm also thinking that part of the reason why some stars have not gotten involved is because they know their hands aren't clean. Um, so I'm curious.